A colossal transatlantic liner, a marvel of modern engineering, was hemorrhaging millions of dollars. Only a single night remained to save its departure schedule. 6 days of frantic effort had failed. No conventional engineer, no corporate technician could fix the catastrophic failure until they finally called a mechanic of 55 years. We're about to reveal the dedication and hidden knowledge that saved the day. But first, if you believe true expertise should always be recognized, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss how this story redefines everything you think you know about real skill. Julián lived in a vibrant coastal city, famous for its deep-water port where the ships were the lifeblood of commerce, and the crashing waves seemed to sing ancient histories. He was 55, a man whose hands were leathered by time and grit, yet moved with a mechanical wisdom that bordered on magic. He had built his life from scratch, achieving success and running his own busy workshop with several workers under his charge. But despite his standing, Julián was never far from the grease and the grime. He loved his trade with the same burning passion he felt as a youth. Every motor he touched seemed to inhale new life under his seasoned care. For Julián, mechanical knowledge wasn't just skill. It was a deep, intuitive communication. He could hear the machine speak. His life had been anything but easy. From his mid-teens, Julián had lived solely with his mother. His father, whom he had idolized, died suddenly when Julián was just 17. They inhabited a humble dwelling not far from the clamor of the docks. That terrible loss acted as a crucible, forging his path. He was forced to abandon his schooling instantly to work and help keep the home afloat. Yet, even before the tragedy, something distinguished him. Julián harbored a profound, almost spiritual fascination with ships. He spent hours watching them at the harbor, listening intently to the massive roar of their engines, convinced he could decipher their language. They were not mere objects to him. They were living giants, and he swore that one day he would learn to speak their tongue. By the age of 18, he frequented the port with single-minded determination. He saw everything from humble fishing boats to imposing cargo vessels. He watched, rapt, as the mechanics navigated the maze of tools, oil, and gears. But whenever he tried to approach, the established workers shut him out. He wasn't deterred. He lingered far off, silently admiring the profound, rhythmic rumble of the engines, believing every sound whispered a secret directly to him. That night, returning home, he felt a powerful shift in his chest, a strong, vibrant beat, like a recently ignited engine. It was then that he fell irreversibly in love with machines. He didn't just want to see them, he wanted to understand them, feel them, and eventually master them. The next morning, Julián arrived at the docks with hope blazing in his heart. He walked the piers, desperately seeking to integrate himself into any workshop, but time and again he was coldly rejected. Some didn't even allow him to speak his plea. To them, he was merely another young man, lacking experience and connections. However, in one dimly lit corner of the port, an older mechanic, perhaps 50 years of age, highly respected and known for his fierce temperament, watched Julián. Something in the boy's desperate persistence triggered a memory, a flash of his own hungry, empty-handed youth, yet with a heart brimming with ambition. Moved by compassion and nostalgia, he approached Julián. "Are you looking for work?" he asked, his voice rough as sandpaper. Julián nodded instantly, his eyes wide with urgency. "Yes, sir. I want to learn. I will do anything." The man studied him for a few silent seconds and then replied, "I won't pay you much, but if you stay here, you will learn the truth of this trade. Be here tomorrow at first light." And so, in that obscure, greasy corner of the port, the true odyssey of Julián began. A journey not across the ocean, but straight into the very soul of the iron giants. Julián walked home with a smile he couldn't hide. The moment he crossed the threshold, he recounted the entire exchange to his mother. She embraced him fiercely, her eyes glistening with pride and emotion. Julián, his voice thick with resolve, told her, "Mother, I am going to be the finest mechanic in this entire port. I promise I will give you a better life." She didn't need to say anything more. She simply looked at him with profound tenderness, knowing her son, though young, spoke with the heart of a full-grown man. The following day, 10 minutes before the appointed time, Julián stood before the old mechanic's shop, nervous but steadfast. The man greeted him with a serious, yet subtly warm, gesture and introduced him to the crew. "This is Julián," he announced. "He has fire in his belly, and that is worth more than any diploma." The other mechanics, hardened but decent men, welcomed him with respect. Some offered a nod, others a rough pat on the shoulder. From that day on, Julián began his formation in the true, demanding art of marine mechanics. Day after day, Julián absorbed knowledge like a dry sponge. He learned with consuming passion, never complaining about the exhaustion or the thick coat of oil that permanently stained his clothes. With the small, hard-earned money he made, he brought food home, and secretly he began to save. He dreamed of eventually opening his own workshop, of achieving independence, and of repaying his mother for every sacrifice she had ever made for him. And so, amid the relentless sounds of tools, the sweat of effort and powerful private dreams, Julián began forging his destiny, one that was only just taking shape. Julián possessed a natural aptitude that allowed him to learn rapidly, startling even the most seasoned veterans in the shop. Time moved steadily, and slowly he began to make a name for himself at the port. He was no longer just the boy who assisted. Now, the old mechanic entrusted him with independent jobs. When a vessel captain arrived with engine trouble, it was often Julián who handled the repair, and the clients always left satisfied, speaking of him with admiration. He started earning significantly more money. His mother, seeing her son thrive and earn the respect of the entire community, slept peacefully, no longer worried about bills or food. Julián was accomplishing his vow. When he turned 35, he felt the undeniable moment had arrived to take the next monumental step. Humbly, he approached the man who had mentored him and offered his sincere thanks for every lesson absorbed. He also hugged his coworkers, who had become like brothers during those foundational years of learning. Using the money he had diligently saved for so long, he opened his own workshop. It was small, but it was his. And with that same spirit of relentless dedication, he transformed it into a place where mechanical excellence was the absolute standard. Not long after, he met a wonderful woman. They married, built a home overflowing with joy and love, and in time, their children arrived. Julián wasn't merely a great mechanic, he was becoming a great man. His reputation began to travel far beyond the city limits. Other coastal ports began to speak of him, and some customers even rerouted their ships specifically for Julián to review their complex power plants. His workshop grew, he hired assistants, but he never stopped getting his hands dirty. He would always insist, "The machines speak to me, and I need to keep listening." As the subsequent years unfolded, Julián's workshop didn't merely survive. It absolutely flourished, quickly becoming the benchmark for quality throughout the coastal region. His professional reputation continued its relentless, steady climb, and the commensurate expansion of his earnings meant that the painful era of scarcity was finally over. The old limitations that had defined their lives were lifted like a heavy fog. He soon moved his family into a beautiful, spacious home perched high on a hill, affording them a breathtaking, unobstructed view of the eternal sea. His mother, a woman who had spent a lifetime making profound and quiet sacrifices, finally found the deep tranquility and well-deserved comfort she had always lacked. Julián, despite his success, remained deeply grounded. He never lost his profound sense of gratitude. He would often turn to her, holding her hand, and declare sincerely, "All of this, Mother, is thanks to God and especially to you, because you never once allowed me to fall." She would simply smile back, that familiar, knowing twinkle in her eyes confirming she understood that her ultimate mission had, at last, been fulfilled. By then, Julián was widely recognized throughout the entire region as one of the elite maritime engine specialists. He drew clients from distant coastal cities, individuals who traveled exclusively, seeking out his unique expertise and his nearly mystical talent for diagnosing engine troubles. His workshop itself was a paragon of oiled efficiency and kinetic energy, a vibrant place filled with the smell of diesel and dedication, where powerful engines roared to life, as if they, too, felt perfectly at home under Julián's careful hand. But even in this flourishing period of success, time, like the relentless, indifferent tide, continued to move, stopping for no one. When Julián reached 45, his mother fell ill. Despite all the care and love he poured into her, her body was weary. She passed away at home, surrounded by her son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren with deep peace in her soul. The blow to Julián was immense. For several days, Julián wore his grief like a heavy cloak and maintained a profound silence. He stayed away from the shop. He needed solitude to mourn, to simply remember. He walked along the seashore at sunrise, just as he had in his youth, seeking answers in the crashing sounds of the waves. Then one morning he looked up at the sky, clenched his fists, and returned to his shop. "I was not born to surrender," he murmured, staring down at his tools. And so, with a lingering ache in his heart but his passion absolutely intact, he resumed his work. What he did not know was that he would soon face the greatest mechanical challenge of his entire life. Several more years went by, and Julián continued working with the same fierce dedication as ever. Now 55, his hair was heavily salted with gray, but his spirit remained unbreakable. His workshop ran with the precision of a Swiss clock, and his name was synonymous with uncompromising excellence among vessel owners throughout the entire region. It was then, in a distant port city, that the unexpected crisis erupted. A massive, state-of-the-art transatlantic liner, recently inaugurated and a source of immense corporate pride, had completed its maiden commercial voyage with resounding success. It had generated millions of dollars in revenue. In only 1 week, it was scheduled to depart again for a massive international operation. But something failed. During a critical pre-departure inspection, one of the primary propulsion engines went completely inert. At first, the engineers assumed the problem was grave, yet no one could pinpoint the cause. The ship's internal mechanics tried everything. They called in high-priced technicians from the vessel's manufacturer. They hired experts from nearby cities. But the day of departure was hurtling toward them, and the engine remained dead. The owners were bordering on desperation. Losing this single voyage didn't just mean losing vast sums of money. It jeopardized the liner's burgeoning reputation in the brutal world of maritime commerce. It was the morning of the 6th day before departure, and the damage remained elusive. It was then that a man, the owner of a simple cargo ship that happened to be docked in that port, noticed the high-strung panic surrounding the colossal liner. He watched the frantic technicians running, the managers arguing heatedly on their phones, and the pervasive tension in the air. When he learned the situation, he asked calmly, "Why haven't you called Julián?" Everyone looked at him, completely confused. "Julián," one of the bewildered engineers repeated as the name meant nothing to them. "Yes," the cargo man replied. "Julián, the mechanic from the city in the south. He fixed my vessel years ago when no one else could touch it. He is the best I know. If anyone can resurrect that engine, it is him." That simple sentence, spoken with total confidence, ignited a critical spark of hope. Without wasting another second, the managers demanded his contact information, and realizing the extreme urgency, they made an unprecedented decision. They would dispatch a helicopter to fetch him personally. The sun was setting slowly when a helicopter descended and landed heavily right outside Julián's workshop, now a deeply consolidated and recognized business. Despite his profound success, he was still there, working with his hands. Two men urgently disembarked and rushed toward him. "Are you Julián?" they demanded. "That's me," he replied, wiping his hands clean with a rag. "We require your help. The main engine of a transatlantic liner is failing. We have tried every kind of technician for 6 days, and nothing. It sails tomorrow morning. If we fail, the losses will be counted in the millions, and you are our last solution." Julián calmly gathered his tools, secured his signature canvas bag, and departed. Upon arrival, he was met by a crowd of managers, engineers, and technicians. Some watched with palpable hope, others with outright skepticism. Amid the low murmuring, some of the liner's mechanics whispered to each other, "That's the famous Julián. That old man can handle this. He doesn't even walk quickly anymore." But Julián paid them no mind. He walked with a steady, unhurried pace until he was guided to the heart of the crisis, the engine room. It was the first time he had ever stood before machinery of this immense magnitude, so modern, so dazzlingly complex. He paused before the huge, silenced motor. He took a deep breath. "You will not intimidate me," he murmured calmly, as if addressing an old enemy. He silently committed himself to the task and began his work. Time was racing. Every tick of the clock was a countdown to utter financial disaster. The ship had to sail at dawn. But Julián did not rush. He focused. He listened to the engine, he touched it, he felt its core temperature and hum. It was as if he were holding a quiet conversation with the inert giant. And then, after 3 intensely concentrated hours, he found it. A hidden, almost imperceptible fault. A single component that was failing inefficiently, but just enough to throw the entire complex system disastrously out of balance. What had taken dozens of elite mechanics 6 days to fail to see, Julián solved in merely 3 hours. When the massive engine roared back to life, thundering like a freshly awakened beast, everyone present froze in astonishment. No one could truly believe it. The managers, the technicians, even the ship's owner stood in stunned silence. One of them, his voice still choked with disbelief, whispered, "He fixed it in 3 hours." Once everything was secured and the engine was operating with perfect, steady normalcy, the executives breathed a colossal sigh of relief. The ship's imminent departure was saved. The news ripped through the port like wildfire. The veteran mechanic had done the impossible. Some approached to offer congratulations. Others simply stared at him with newfound, profound respect. Even those who had openly doubted him now had nothing to say. One of the primary officials of the transatlantic company, still visibly shaken by the experience, approached Julián as he calmly cleaned his essential tools. "Mr. Julián, we are immensely grateful you saved this entire voyage. Please tell us, what is your fee for this incredible work?" Julián looked up. There was a brief, profound silence. Then, with a serene but firm voice, he named a considerable figure. It was not absurd, but it was unquestionably high. The manager frowned instantly. That much, for only 3 hours of labor. Julián met his gaze with a faint, knowing smile and the unshakable composure of a man who had dedicated a lifetime to learning his craft. "I do not charge you for the 3 hours, he replied. "I charge you for the 37 years it took me to learn this demanding art." No one spoke a word. The only sound was the flawless, low rumble of the perfectly functioning engine. It was at that precise moment that everyone truly understood the real, intrinsic value of knowledge, experience, and the dedication of an entire life. Julián did not just save a ship that night. He delivered a lesson that no engine manual could ever teach. And just like that, his fame multiplied exponentially. He was known not only in nearby ports, but on every far-flung coastline and in every distant city. Never, ever underestimate the true, immeasurable price of specialized knowledge. The ease with which someone achieves a task in mere minutes often represents a relentless dedication and an entire lifetime spent honing that crucial skill. If this story resonated deep within you, if you, too, value hard work, constant learning, and the unwavering dedication of those who refuse to surrender their dreams, please take a moment to share this powerful message with others. Drop a comment below and let me know which part struck you the most. And if you are new here and haven't joined our community yet, hit that subscribe button right now. Speaking of motivation, remember that we have many more life-changing stories already waiting on your screen, ready to inspire your journey. Thank you so much for investing your time and staying with us until this very moment. We truly appreciate your support. Until next time, keep learning, keep striving, and we will see you in the next one.